good afternoon. I'm Mary Jordan, and on behalf of the Board of Directors and the Airport Authority team, I'd like to welcome you to our annual public meeting. I'll start by acknowledging we are here on the traditional territory of the Musqueam First Nation. I want to acknowledge that video we just saw. I look forward to seeing that beautiful addition to our international terminal in person in a few years. But back to today. We will report on 2016, which I think I can say with no exaggeration was an incredible year. It began with the introduction of a new rates and charges program for the airlines called Connect YVR, which substantially lowered our rates and charges to our airline partners. We saw 18 new routes and destinations and 2 new airline partners, and some of this growth can be attributed to Connect YVR. We were the first airport in the world to achieve Salmon Safe certification, and we received carbon accreditation through Airports Council International. We continued consultations with stakeholders and the community on the airport's new long-term development plan, our 2037 master plan, gaining valuable insight and deepening connections with partners and our community. I could go on, but I would be stealing the thunder of YVR team members who will follow me. So just to quickly review the agenda for this afternoon, Steve Hankinson, Vice President Operations, will touch on our operational performance in 2016. As a preview, Steve and his team did an excellent job with 22.3 million passengers and the first significant snow in 3 years. Glenn McCoy, Senior Vice President Strategy and CFO, will present the financial statements for 2016, demonstrating how last year reflects our history of strong financial management. Michelle Mawhinney, Vice President, Human Resources and Supply Management, is going to talk about something that's very important to the Airport Authority, the role of diversity in creating a great airport. As your airport, we want our team to reflect the community that we serve. Craig Richmond, our President and CEO, will provide a snapshot of 2016 and will also describe the importance of looking ahead and being ready for the future as part of Flight Plan 2037. In addition to presentations by our executives, we believe that understanding who we are is best told through stories, and we have invited 3 team members to tell you their story. Danielle Moore will tell us about a typical day in the life of an airport's center manager and the teamwork required to run YVR. Chris Gilliland will talk about our core value of innovation and the work of our innovative travel solutions team. And Nathaniel Wong from our Air Service Development team will talk about how we bring new services and airlines to YVR. After these presentations, it's your turn. We'll open the meeting for your questions, comments, and suggestions. A quick reminder, we are recording this meeting, and it is streaming on Facebook Live for those who could not be here in person. After the meeting, it will continue to be available on our Facebook page. Now I'd like to say a few words about who we are and introduce your board of directors. Many of you will have seen in the media that there is a potential challenge to the current governance model for airport authorities in Canada. Today, YVR is a private, not-for-profit organization. There are no equity shareholders, so no money leaves the airport as dividends. Instead, all earnings are reinvested in the airport to deliver our fundamental mission, to support our community by connecting BC proudly to the world. This change to our governance model would essentially result in the sale of airports, making them into for-profit, shareholder-based companies. You may have seen the term privatization or share capitalization in news reports. Craig will say a few more words about what this could mean to you. From the board's perspective, one of the biggest concerns with this idea is that it would change the relationship between the airport and our community. Rather than decisions being made here in BC, They would likely be made in private equity boardrooms in New York or Toronto. Another concern, in addition to the loss of community control, selling YVR to a for-profit share capital organization would result in higher costs and lower levels of service. Now, why do I say this? Because that has been the experience in other markets. A recent report from the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission suggested that consumers could be paying some $1.6 billion in additional fees. As chair, I can assure you that YVR spends a lot of time considering how we can better support British Columbia. Its economic development, job creation, sustainability, and giving back by investing in the community. Our mandate is to serve all of our stakeholders and the community. We were pleased that both Air Canada and WestJet have spoken out publicly against a change in our governance model. So too have the cities of Vancouver, Richmond, and Burnaby, as well as the province of British Columbia. They understand the strength of the current model, strength to respond to our stakeholders and act as a true partner in developing a world-class airport for British Columbians, and strength to respond to the aspirations of our community for a sustainable airport that supports their vision of a vibrant future. Our 2016 Annual and Sustainability Report shares the progress we have made on our sustainability journey. The full report, including our audited financial statements, was published on our website on April 26th, fulfilling our commitment to make the report available for your review well in advance of today's meeting. Available in the room today is a hard copy of the Annual and Sustainability Report, including coverage in 4 areas of sustainability: environmental, governance, social, and economic. It also includes YVR's consolidated financial statements. The non-consolidated statements can be found on the website. We welcome any feedback you may have on our annual reporting. Now it's my pleasure to introduce your board of directors, the 14 people responsible for the governance of the Airport Authority. Well, you've met me. As chair, I'm a director at large. And Craig Richmond also serves on the board by virtue of his role as president and CEO. Joseph Caron is a director at large. John Curry is the nominee of the Chartered Professional Accountants of British Columbia. Anna Fung is the nominee of the Law Society of British Columbia, and Ken Goosen is the nominee of the Association of Professional Engineers and Geoscientists of British Columbia. Howard Jampolsky is the nominee of the City of Richmond, and Annalisa King is a director at large. Ken Martin is the nominee of the Greater Vancouver Board of Trade, and Kush Panache is one of our 2 federal government nominees. Jerry Sinclair is a director at large, and Tamara Vrooman is the nominee of the City of Vancouver. Wayne Wright is the nominee of Metro Vancouver. And last, because today is his last day on the board, our second federal government nominee, George Cadman. George has served on the board for our maximum term, 9 years, and in that time, he has made an enormous contribution. George chaired 2 committees, the Human Resources and Compensation Committee for 3 years, and the Governance Committee for 6 years, as well as participating as a member on other committees and numerous task forces. He is a true leader and has a keen mind, raising key questions and considerations for his colleagues around the board table. His exceptional insight into the workings of government and on matters of governance in general was a great benefit. I want to personally thank George for all of his counsel. You will be missed. Thank you. Thank you all for coming to the meeting and for your interest in YVR. I'd now like to welcome Steve Hankinson, Vice President, Operations and Maintenance, to present our 2016 operational results.
Thank you, Mary, and good afternoon, everyone. 2016 was an amazing year. We started ambitious new projects. We broke records, and we improved the airport for everyone. In 2016, we welcomed a record 22.3 million passengers, an increase of almost 10%. We saw strong growth in all sectors, thanks to new and continued air services. This included international traffic, which increased by more than 16%, thanks to strong growth in the Asia-Pacific and Latin American markets. We had more than 280,000 takeoffs and landings on our runways. We also had strong float plane and helicopter traffic. In total, there were over 319,000 aircraft movements. Here's an interesting fact. Passenger traffic increased 9.7%, while aircraft movements went up by less than 1%. And why? This means we're moving more people per aircraft. YVR continued to expand its cargo business in 2016. We moved more than 281,000 metric tons, a 3.4% increase. This included high-demand BC perishables such as salmon, cherries, and crab. At the same time, we remained committed to customer care, achieving a 91% customer satisfaction rating for the 4th year in a row. How? Our Greencoat volunteers had a lot to do with it. They contributed over 81,000 volunteer hours. And for over 27 years, they have greatly improved the customer experience. And I would like to ask all Greencoats present to please stand up and be acknowledged. Thank you for being here today. Over 23,000 people work on Sea Island to support YVR's operations. And last summer, this community was put to the test. We had our busiest season yet. On peak days, we welcomed up to 85,000 passengers and 100,000 bags. At the same time, we undertook key infrastructure upgrades. This required a big effort from our airside planning and operations employees, as well as our contractors and partners at the airlines and, of course, NAV Canada. For instance, our team installed energy-efficient LED lights on the apron. This included new fixtures and high-mast poles, which provided greater illumination and saves power. In addition, our team replaced and repaved taxiway surfaces to ensure the smooth operation of our airfield. We also completed the second construction phase of our runway and safety areas, or RESAs. These are specialized areas that improve safety in the unlikely event that an aircraft lands short or overshoots a runway. Each night, a large crew of contractors and YVR employees worked with NAV Canada to close the south runway. They placed over 700 concrete panels with lighting infrastructure on the east end. And every morning, they returned the runway to service, only to start again the next night. The winter operations team was put to a test a few months later when YVR received its first snowfall in over 1,000 days. Our team began preparing in late summer, and when the snow hit, we had up to 80 pieces of equipment at our disposal. We greatly appreciate the hard work of the snow operations team during this challenging period and thank our passengers for their patience. Although I don't want to jinx us, we'd like to put the snow behind us and focus on our 2017 operations. But first, I want to tell you about our biannual full-scale emergency exercise that just happened on April 27. We conduct this exercise to meet federal requirements and test our emergency response plan, because safety is our #1 priority. More than 600 volunteers participated in the exercise, and 24 agencies worked together to address the airport-wide emergency scenario. The exercise provided valuable training and identified areas for improvement. These areas included developing guidelines and information for frontline airport employees and better mitigating secondary impacts for passengers. We are committed to providing a safe airfield. To provide context, we have 4 operational runways: the North Runway, the South, the Crosswind, and the Fraser River for float plane activity. The North and South Runway are our 2 parallel runways, which are used for the majority of departures and arrivals. The South Runway is the longest of our runways and is our main runway that operates 24 hours per day. Each summer, we do ongoing maintenance and safety upgrades on our runways when the weather is at its best. In 2017, we will complete the RISA on the east end of the South Runway, and we will also begin and complete RISAs on both ends of the Crosswind Runway. Concurrently, we will resurface the South Runway and carry out our annual runway maintenance program from May through September. During this time, the South Runway will be closed Sunday to Friday between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. when the North Runway will be used for all arrivals and departures. In addition, we are anticipating this will be our busiest summer to date. The North Runway is typically used primarily for arrivals. It is approved for departures as required to reduce delays, such as during peak periods. This summer, NAV Canada will be using the North Runway for some departures during the day when required. It will only be used when necessary to reduce delays. If you have any questions about our 2017 summer runway operations, I encourage you to go to yvr.ca or come and see me afterward, because being a good neighbor is important to us. To accommodate operations during peak times, we will need to implement a remote aircraft stand operation for 2 flights. This means passengers will be transported off the international terminal and to and from their aircraft by bus. In keeping with YVR tradition, we plan on it being the most efficient and passenger-friendly operation possible. And operations begin on June 1st. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of our business partners. Thank you to the airlines, ground handlers, government agencies, retail and food and beverage providers for your contribution to caring for all of our customers. And now I would like to introduce Danielle Moore, one of YVR's Operations Center managers.
Thank you, Steve. Merci beaucoup d'être ici aujourd'hui. I am here to talk about teamwork, which is one of our core values. I represent a diverse group known as the Operations Team, or Team Ops. This includes myself, 4 managers, 9 terminal duty officers, and 9 gate schedulers. As well, it includes support from a number of key teams across the YVR community, from security and IT to baggage, customer care, and transportation. Some of us have been on this team for nearly 40 years, and some are early in their career, but all have one thing in common: taking care of passengers, planes, and bags. Together, as shift workers, we run the Integrated Operations Center, as you see here. This is the airport's nerve center, a 24/7 information hub. From here, we observe almost everything going on at the airport, and we respond to a wide range of events. This could be a simple phone call to solve a mechanical glitch on a moving walkway, and at other times, we coordinate large, multi-stakeholder responses. For instance, we recently activated the Emergency Operations Center when the airport experienced an electrical storm. During these storms, aircraft cannot be refueled, loaded, or unloaded. This can cause lineups at both security and in hold rooms, as passengers can't board planes until the storm ends. Our team helps coordinate with the airlines, our security partner, CATSA, and the Air Traffic Control Tower, NAV Canada, to help get passengers moving again as soon as it is safe. One of the biggest rewards is when we help people in tough situations. I recall working with our airport partners to assist a couple of hundred passengers who were returning from an area affected by a hurricane. Some had lost all their belongings and didn't have access to running water for several days, and we were there to help provide some comfort while they were waiting to reunite with family and friends. Not all events are as complex as this, but in many instances we are there to help people in times of need when even a small gesture makes a difference. We have taken care of animals and retrieved everything from jewelry to much-loved teddy bears. I am proud to be part of the operations team. This is a team that loves making a difference, often in anonymous ways, and is dedicated to making sure you have a great journey through YVR. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Next, I would like to welcome Glenn McCoy, YVR's Senior Vice President, Strategy and Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you, Danielle, and good afternoon. I will be presenting the highlights of our 2016 non-consolidated financial statements, which cover the Airport Authority's activities from the last year. The Airport Authority earns revenue from three sources. The first source is aeronautical revenue in the form of landing and terminal fees, collected to recover the costs related to airline operations. This revenue amounted to $127 million in 2016, a decrease from $139 million in 2015. This decrease was due to our new 5-year rates and charges program, Connect YVR. The program dropped existing airline rates by 15% on average, making YVR's rates lower than any other major airport in Canada and competing U.S. airports. We saw immediate results with increased frequencies, destinations, and new airlines in 2016. The second source is non-aeronautical revenue, which includes revenue from concessions, such as duty-free stores and car rentals, car parking, and land and terminal rents. Revenue from these sources increased to $212 million in 2016, up from $208 million in 2015, due to an increase in revenue from sources such as duty-free and advertising, as well as car parking and rentals. The third source of revenue is the Airport Improvement Fee, or AIF, which is collected to help fund capital projects. Total revenue earned from the fee in 2016 was $150 million, up from $137 million in 2015, due to the strong passenger growth experienced in 2016. YVR continues to have the lowest AIF in Canada and only charges a $5 fee for passengers traveling in British Columbia. In summary, the total revenue earned from these three sources in 2016 was $490 million, with the largest portion of the revenue, 43%, coming from non-aeronautical sources. This is part of the Airport Authority's strategy to keep AIF rates and airline charges low to ensure we remain competitive and attract new services that benefit British Columbia. Turning to expenses, a portion of non-AIF revenue goes towards covering the day-to-day costs of operating the airport. We spend money on items such as safety and security, maintenance, cleaning, customer care, salaries, electricity, insurance, as well as payments in lieu of taxes to local governments. In 2016, these costs increased by $13 million, from $178 million to $191 million. The increase is mainly due to snow operations, marketing, terminal repair and maintenance, baggage sortation, and negotiated wage increases as per the collective bargaining agreement, all in support of achieving our strategic plan objectives. The Airport Authority also uses a portion of its revenue to pay ground lease rent to the federal government. In 2016, the rent expense increased by almost $2 million, from $49 million to $51 million. This was due to increased revenue, as I described earlier, as the ground lease rent payment is determined as a percentage of revenue. When the total cash needed to pay for capital projects during any year exceeds the amount of cash available after payment of operating costs, ground lease, and interest costs, debt financing is required. The Airport Authority carefully manages debt levels and seeks to achieve a reasonable balance between debt and sources of revenue. We currently have $550 million in long-term debt, and last year we did not incur any new borrowings. Debt carries interest payments, which amounted to $30 million in 2016, a decrease from $32 million in 2015. This was due to the issuance of a 30-year debenture in November 2015, replacing a maturing debenture which had a higher interest rate. The new debenture had one of the lowest rates of any 30-year debt issued by a Canadian airport. As required under generally accepted accounting principles, in the statement of operations, the cost of capital projects is spread over the useful life of the projects, as opposed to being recognized as the cash paid each year during a project's construction. The spreading of the cost over the useful life is reflected as amortization on the statement of operations. Total amortization in 2016 amounted to $138 million, up from $128 million in 2015, as a number of new projects came into service and began to be amortized. The Airport Authority also realized $5 million of partnership income from the entities created to hold various tenant buildings focused mainly on cargo on Sea Island. The total excess of revenue over expenses was $84 million in 2016, a decrease of $16 million from $100 million in 2015, with most of the decrease coming from the implementation of Connect YVR. Our interest coverage ratio remained very strong at 8.9, and keep in mind all excess of revenue over expenses is reinvested in the airport, as I will show you now. When we adjust our excess of revenue over expenses to a cash basis, we add back amortization, which is a non-cash expense. In 2016, the Airport Authority generated $199 million of cash flow prior to investment in capital projects, which is made up of the two amounts shown here: $55 million of net cash flow from operations, plus $144 million net of collection costs from the AIF. During 2016, the Airport Authority invested $160 million of this cash in capital projects. This left $39 million of cash remaining, which when added to the $120 million of cash we had at the beginning of the year, leaves $160 million of cash available at year-end, which is being used to fund projects in 2017 and future years. The Airport Authority remains very strong financially, one of only 3 airports in the world with a AA credit rating. Thank you. And now I'm pleased to introduce Chris Gilliland, Manager of Innovative Travel Solutions.
Thank you, Glenn. At YVR, one of our top priorities is to constantly improve the airport experience. We do this by identifying everyday challenges and seeking out innovative solutions. And in some cases, this benefits not just YVR, but the industry as a whole. For instance, in 2009, we developed Innovative Travel Solutions, an independent department whose first mandate was to fix the congestion in our customs hall. It's this team that came up with our automated self-service border control solution, which we call Border Express. We work closely with the Canada Border Services Agency to develop the first model, which greatly reduced wait times for Canadians returning back to Canada. These kiosks were so successful that airports across the United States began to take notice and show great interest. This led to the development of our automated passport control kiosks, which we launched at YVR in 2013 in collaboration with U.S. Customs and Border Protection. These kiosks can be used by U.S. and Canadian passport holders, lawful permanent residents, and travelers from all visa and visa waiver countries. We have now sold over 1,200 kiosks to 36 airport and seaport locations across North America, the Caribbean, and the Pacific. Our solution has helped over 100 million travelers safely and effectively clear the border. And now more and more countries are looking towards YVR to help automate their borders. This includes St. Martin, Barbados, and most recently, we have sold our solution to Cyprus, marking our first entry into the European Union. Here you see our newest creation, the Primary Inspection Kiosk. This version is configured to meet the latest requirements of Canada Border Services Agency and is able to process the majority of travelers arriving into Canada. It includes a number of innovative technologies, such as facial recognition technologies, and it's also paperless, which will go a long way to help YVR achieve its sustainability goals. In fact, passengers can now use a new electronic declaration app, which works with the kiosks to further reduce the time it takes to enter into the country. YVR introduced the PIC kiosks to our operations on April 17th, and we're also in talk with a number of other airports across the country to sell even more of the technology. I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge our colleagues at Canada Border Services Agency. Their vision and dedication will go a long way to improving the airport experience for everyone. For YVR, innovation is key to our success. It not only improves the airport experience here, It also evolves the industry and makes air travel better and more enjoyable for everyone. Thank you. Next, I would like to welcome Michelle Mawhinney, YVR's Vice President of Human Resources and Supply Management. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I'm pleased to talk today about the diversity journey at YVR. YVR is an airport that welcomes everyone, and we strive to have a workforce that reflects the community we serve. We also design the airport to meet the needs of our many passengers. We take a targeted approach to recruitment and network with various organizations that represent diverse candidates. In 2016, we attended career fairs for Indigenous peoples and sponsored the Project Everybody Employment and Hiring Fair for persons with disabilities. Our outreach with the BCIT program, Trades Discovery for Women, helped us hire women in non-traditional roles, such as electricians. We are committed to removing barriers within our workplace and have tailored programs such as our Women in Management and Women's Coaching Circles. In 2016, women accounted for 36% of our board of directors, 44% of our executive team, and 41% of our management team. We have been continually increasing the number of women on our management team, and we're not that far from achieving our goal of 50% to have true gender equality. We were recently named one of BC's top employers for the 10th year in a row. And I'm very proud to say that we just won Airport Council North America's Inclusion Champion Award, the first Canadian airport to do so. This award was based on our inclusion efforts, both internally and with our community and business partners. We gain recognition because of the welcoming culture we create. Every October, we host a diversity awareness campaign, and we provide ongoing training to our employees to foster that awareness. In 2016, this included our new award-winning queer competency training that helped employees understand the issues that are faced by the LGBTQ community. And our management team gained valuable insights from unconscious bias training. We also recognize that our passengers are diverse with different needs and interests. And in 2016, we continued to make our airport more welcoming. We updated our washroom design and installed new inclusive signage. We improved our visual paging system for passengers who experience hearing challenges. And we opened an animal relief area to help passengers traveling with assistance animals. Our diversity journey is truly a team effort. As BC's Gateway Airport, we strive to accommodate everyone and realize our journey is one of continuous improvement. We measure our progress, we promote respect and equality among our employees, and we enhance our terminal design and features for everyone's benefit. Thank you. I would now like to invite Nathaniel Wong, our aviation marketing analyst, to speak about air service development.
Thank you, Michelle. Today, I'll talk about how the Air Service Development Team helps to build the YVR Hub. Our role is to connect people and products of BC to the world, and we do this proactively. Back in the day, airlines decided where they wanted to fly, and we happily received them. But the world has changed, and the competition amongst airports has increased. Today, we work with our existing airline customers and potential new airlines to identify new air service opportunities, building a business case that shows airlines why they should choose YVR to deploy their aircraft. We do this through 4 key steps. First, we identify markets with potential. We analyze various data sources, including passenger numbers, and look for growth opportunities. This includes such destinations as Miami, which does not have nonstop service to YVR. In fact, passengers are using Dallas, Chicago, and Toronto to travel between Vancouver and Miami, which demonstrates a great opportunity for YVR. At the same time, we also look at current government policies to see if there are any challenges or restrictions in place. For years, we have been talking to carriers about growing service to Mexico City. Unfortunately, we've faced visa restrictions. But recently, the government announced the removal of the tourist visa. This decision has had a very positive effect for Air Canada and Aeromexico. In 2015, Aeromexico began service with 7 weekly flights. This will increase to 14 this summer. We also create a business case and take this to our airline partners. This illustrates the market potential and other key selling points, including the destination and the airport. Our second step is to proactively engage key decision makers, including network planners at events such as the annual Roots Conference. This conference is like speed dating between airports and airlines. We meet with regional planners from around the world, giving a 15-minute pitch on why they should choose YVR. If we find a match, we then meet with the airline executives to discuss the opportunity. At this point, we bring in our team, which includes our tourism organizations that are key to marketing the route. Third, the airline conducts its own feasibility study, looking at the route potential. After all, they want to know that the market fit is right and that the route will be profitable. If the business case is made, we work towards an agreement. The airline and YVR's marketing and operations team then work out the details and put a plan in place to ensure a smooth start. Ideally, the culmination of these efforts ends in a celebratory launch. This is the recent launch of Air Canada's new service to Delhi, the most requested destination amongst our community. It had a good market fit, thanks to cultural and family ties. It had the right ingredient for growth potential, and it was made feasible thanks to advancements in technology through the new Dreamliner aircraft. Finally, after the launch of a new service, we continue the ongoing work with our airline and tourism partners to ensure the success of the route. In the end, what we are selling is everything you've heard today: our award-winning airport, our low-cost Connect YVR program, the destination, the community, and the experience. Thank you. It's now my pleasure to introduce our fearless leader, Craig Richmond, YVR's President and CEO.
I'm not sure I want to follow all those great presentations. Well, thank you, Nathaniel, for that great snapshot on air service development. It takes a real team effort to attract and retain new services, and I'll go through all those new services in a moment. But first, welcome, and thank you all for coming here this afternoon. After all, this is your airport. YVR is a community-based organization, and we all have a stake in its success, whether we are employees, business partners, community members, or the general public. YVR means different things to all of us, but I think we can all agree that the airport is a vital part of our community. We're important for BC because we bring economic prosperity, but we also instill great pride in our province and our people. And in the last year, we won 2 awards that demonstrate this. We were named Airport of the Year at the prestigious Kappa Aviation Awards of Excellence, as chosen by our industry peers. This award puts us in the same category as past winners, including 2 of the world's top airports, Schiphol in Amsterdam and Changi in Singapore. And for the 8th year in a row, Skytrax declared YVR the best airport in North America, as voted by over 13 million passengers. It's an unprecedented feat and a great vote of confidence. So give yourselves a hand. And that concludes my speech. No, you're not that lucky. Now, these awards are testament to the passion and teamwork of the YVR community, a group of more than 23,000 people who work on Sea Island. And they demonstrate that our commitment to safety, teamwork, accountability, and innovation is paying off. As you've heard from our speakers, while 2016 was one for the books, we broke records, we continued to grow, we launched some exciting plans. Our goal is 25 million passengers by 2020, and we're almost there. This goal is the focus of YVR's strategic plan, a 3-year effort that provides the direction for our business under 4 objectives: create a world-class connecting hub, be a leader in sustainability, deliver remarkable customer experiences, and build on our exceptional foundation. Our vision is to connect Asia to the Americas, and last year we did just that. Thanks to programs such as Connect YVR, we saw incredible growth in air services. And why does this matter? because every daily international flight injects tens of millions of dollars into the economy and creates between 100 and 200 jobs. In 2016, we welcomed 18 new services and 2 new airlines, and that's a lot of jobs. So let's go through them. In May, we kicked off our busy period with a big shebang. Here you see the A380, the world's largest passenger aircraft, landing as BA brought it aboard in May. This came about after 2 decades of planning. This was followed very shortly by WestJet launching 767 service to London Gatwick on May 6th, and shortly after to Halifax and San Diego. Gatwick marked WestJet's first European flight from YVR. Our biggest partner, Air Canada, had a spectacular year at YVR. They made up 62% of our passenger growth. Started a great run of new services, including new express service to San Jose in May, followed by double daily to London and a new service to Chicago and one to Dallas. A big new one was direct service to Brisbane. This was so successful, it was soon moved to daily. And of course, as previously mentioned, in October, Air Canada launched new service to Delhi on the Dreamliner. The local community had requested this route for some time, and Air Canada delivered. Air Canada Rouge also launched new services to San Diego and Dublin, and we were very happy to celebrate Air Transat and their service to Rome, our first direct flight, a great destination and a great cake, as you see here. In July, we welcomed our new partner, Xiaomin Airlines, with their first service to North America. With this new route, we connected YVR directly with Xiamen and Fujian Province, great tourism business destinations. And soon after, Sichuan Airlines announced new service to Zhengzhou. Are you getting tired of me reciting all these flights? Because I'm not ever going to get tired. Aeromexico added more flights to Mexico City on December 1st, from 7 to 10 per week, and this will increase to double daily in June. And just under the wire, on December 30th, we welcomed our new airline partner, Beijing Capital Airlines, with their new service between Qingdao, Hangzhou, and Vancouver. Normally, December 30th, there would not be snow. With the addition of Capital Airlines, YVR now has more mainland Chinese carriers than any other airport in the Americas or Europe. More than Heathrow, more than JFK, more than LAX or San Francisco. It's quite an accomplishment for a mid-sized Canadian airport. We've also, oh, thank you. Yes, please. We've also gotten off to a strong start in 2017. We recently welcomed Cathay Pacific's new Airbus A350 aircraft on its Hong Kong route. Like the Dreamliner, this amazing aircraft raises the bar for air travel, and we'll see many more of the A380 in the near future. A350. Air Canada Express launched new daily service to Dallas in February, and they increased their Phoenix service to double daily on May 1st. They'll launch a double daily to Denver this month. In June, Air Canada will also launch service to Taipei and direct service to Boston. And Air Canada Rouge will soon launch service to London Gatwick and an exciting new service to Nagoya, Japan. Not on that aircraft, but it will be Rouge. Air Transat will launch its new twice-weekly service to Montreal, and our new partner, Hong Kong Airlines, will launch new daily service on June 30th. But wait, there's more. Just last week, Air Canada announced seasonal service to Melbourne, Australia, and Orlando, Florida. And there may be some more surprises in the second half of the year, so stay tuned. Throughout 2016, we focused on delivering a great airport experience. And this included a range of terminal enhancements, some that you would see as a passenger and some that you would not. You would have seen the beautiful collection of Haida art in our domestic terminal by renowned artist Reg Davidson. This added to our unique sense of place. You wouldn't have seen our new high-speed baggage system, which can move a bag to any terminal location in under 30 minutes. This means shorter wait times for passengers and a better connecting experience, key to our business success. Speaking of reducing waiting times, our Border Express kiosk continued to shine, as Chris pointed out. Our Designer Outlet Center had a great second year. It exceeded expectations with over 3.5 million visitors in 2016. So an important reminder, the profit generated from the kiosks, the outlet center, our parking and our shops and services gets reinvested back into YVR. And this helps build what is required and helps keep our costs down. So the more successful we are as a business, the more we can improve the airport for everyone. And remember, we receive no government grants or subsidies. So what do we do with that money? Well, this year we continued to make the airport more accessible. We're working with the Canadian National Institute for the Blind and the Western Institute for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing to improve the airport. We also developed a new universal design requirements framework that is more strict than the code. And we continue to train our employees through a disability awareness training program in partnership with the Rick Hansen Foundation. The Canucks Autism Network asked us to develop a new YVR autism sticker for families living with autism. This sticker can be placed on boarding passes, ensuring an expedited airport process through screening and customs. Why is this important? Because I think we can all agree that every person should have the opportunity to fly, and it's our job to make sure their needs are met. We made great progress towards our sustainability goals. In fact, we achieved a target in our 2020 environmental management plan 4 years ahead of time. This was the goal of diverting 50% of our waste from landfill. We actually hit 51% last year. This is thanks to the hard work of our environment team and an innovative program such as YVR's Waste Wars, a friendly competition among our airport tenants. And as Mary said, we were the first airport in the world to achieve Salmon Safe certification. This is a key milestone that acknowledges our efforts to responsibly manage our airport land, which is surrounded by the mighty Fraser, one of the most important salmon rivers in the world. We'll continue our efforts to reduce emissions. We received airport carbon accreditation from Airport Council International, putting us on the right path. And we will continue to reduce potable water use and to improve ecosystem health. This matters to all of us because we live and work in this beautiful region. In 2016, we donated over $1 million to local organizations. This supported a wide range of excellent causes in your communities, from improving the environment to helping those in need. And we shared our success, inviting the community to our first community chill-out day at Larryburg Flight Path Park, shown here. It was quite a success, and we will do it again. As a community airport, we serve the needs of the BC public. We're building a plan for the future and have received great suggestions from our business partners and communities. This feedback helped shape our new 20-year master plan, which shows how YVR will meet growth in a sustainable manner. In 2016, we sought public input in all aspects of the airport, from airside and ground access to land use. We inspired the community to imagine their future airport with fantastic ideas such as vertical gardens and robotics. And we received great feedback we're using to design our future. This culminated in the launch of Flight Plan 2037, our roadmap, which I launched at the Greater Vancouver Board of Trade speech last January. This is our vision of the future. It includes our master plan, as well as the corresponding terminal, financial, and capital plans. Our flight plan forecasts 35 million passengers by 2037, but the capacity limit of our current terminal is 25 million, which we will reach shortly. So we need to get a little creative, and we also need to start building extra capacity, and we have some ideas in this regard. For instance, we're at work on expansion to the international terminal. You saw that movie at the beginning. Pier D, from which all international flights, save those to the United States, depart. This section of the terminal will be greatly expanded with new gates, stores, restaurants, and space. As part of the design phase, we are also looking at opportunities to improve sustainability. We really want to improve the customer experience. We take great pride in the sense of place we've created at the airport, and we'll apply this to Pier D, not just through a physical display, which we currently think could look like a West Coast island, as you see here, but also through technology. This could include digital signage and art and much more. We're also looking at our energy needs. This terminal complex, after all, is the largest building in BC, and this presents some unique opportunities and challenges. We're very close to a decision on a new district energy building seen here. This centrally located building would put all of YVR's energy needs under one roof and act as the nerve center for YVR's digital assets, greatly improving how we use energy across all our systems. And it would help achieve our sustainability targets by including features such as a geothermal plant. We're looking at building another parkade with more electrical charging stations and excellent accessibility. It would feature a new ground transfer facility and a rainwater capture system to help us reduce our water consumption. And we'll expand our transborder area where we are now, starting later this year. It will give us more room and amenities, making security and customs processes easier. So we have a lot of exciting plans coming up, and we couldn't do these without your support. I'd truly like to thank the thousands of people who work on Sea Island every day, including our fantastic employees, our business partners, and our volunteers. Very simply, you do great work. I'd like to thank our customers for choosing YVR. As well, a big thank you to our communities for their continued support. We have some ambitious plans, and we need your help. Everyone counts at YVR, and your efforts are the key to our success. A great part of that success stems from our unique not-for-profit business model. Under this model, we reinvest all profits back into the airport. This has laid the foundation for our sustainable, incremental growth and superior customer service. As we have highlighted here today, it means an exceptional airport experience, an environmental leader, a community contributor, and an economic generator. But as Mary mentioned earlier, the model is under threat. The federal government is considering selling Canada's major airports, turning them into share capital companies owned by investment banks and pension funds. If that was to occur, what would this new for-profit YVR mean to its new owners? Well, it would be nothing but a source of income, and the demands for an economic return would be huge and unrelenting. You would see decreased service levels, increased prices, less innovation, and reduced community investment, with little community input. We strongly oppose this idea. It's simply not in the best interest of British Columbians. YVR is your airport, and at this airport we work to serve the interests of the region. You can show your support by sending a letter to your MP. To do this, go to noairportselloff.ca. Well, thank you once again for making this one of the best airports in the world. Let's keep it that way. So that wraps up the speeches. The executive team and I will now be happy to take questions. Robin McVicker, our Director of Communications, will be moderating the Q&A, some from the audience and some from the Twitterverse. Robin.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. A lot, actually, from the Twitterverse. For the first time, we've had a very large number of email submission questions, as well as questions from Twitter and social media. So what we're going to do today is intersperse some of the written submissions with live questions from you all in the audience. In order to deal with the volume of the questions that we've received online, we're going to group them into themes and subject matters. So we'll give a display of some of the questions that were there under each theme. But we will post all questions that we received online with the answers by May 20th. At that time, we're also going to post all of the questions that you give us today and the answers that are here. So to get started, I would invite people to come up to the microphones. There's 3 microphones. Feel free to come up and ask any questions. I will call on you, and then Craig will answer, and I'll intersperse some of the social media ones in between. Okay? Does that work for you? Perfect. I have a handy-dandy clicker here, so let's see how this works. Excellent. I'm going to start with one of the Twitter questions that we have, because we have a key community that we wanted to make sure we recognize right off the bat. We have a large plane spotting community, and we received a number of questions on social media from them. So Craig, our plane spotting community wants to know about a viewing area on the north runway. Probably not on the runway, but nearby.
Yeah, the dirt hill is not good enough. We have a great, inside the terminal, we have a great spotting area. We have a great one in the south. We have the Larryberg Flight Path Park. Yes, we will build one in the viewing area for the north runway. It was asked for by a lot of people during our master plan.
Yeah.
So yes.
Perfect. Now, I don't see anybody else in person asking questions, so I'm going to move on to the next social media question, and it relates to our desire to be a connecting hub. The facility where passengers connect from international and domestic to the U.S. is inadequate. Often passengers are lined up in such a small area with very little space. YVR relies heavily on this connection. What are we going to do to address it?
We have an acronym for everything. That is the ITPCF, the International Transborder Pre-Clearance Facility. And we do have a plan to fix it. Steve, would you like to talk about it?
Well, it's actually a good news story. As we have talked about our strategy in building the hub, this part of the facility is getting an awful lot busier. So we actually have plans underway to almost double the size of it by next summer. New technology, increase the overall space, new technology to allow customers to transit that area very quickly.
Great. Thanks, Steve. Hi, Mr. Greg, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good, thanks for coming.
Thank you. I have 2 related questions. The first in regards to the public plan 2037, public amenities. And I think it would be useful to have some kind of timeline schedule built into that plan, Currently, it shows quite a few public amenities to be built over the next 20 years. But in terms of building credibility with the public, I think we'd like to see some timelines that say this is what we think we should be building on what dates. Now, I appreciate that you need absolute flexibility, particularly if you have to build those public facilities in conjunction with your other capital plans. But you have the ability with social media and the plan to change it year by year. I think the public needs to know that you're serious about the public amenities. And I guess that's a segue into the second part of my query. And that is in regard to governance. As a proud supporter of YVR, I see this as a serious threat to the way of conducting business at YVR and the consequences on the public. However, no matter how much you may protest, from the management point of view, I fear that public stakeholders will feel that you're protesting too much. Really, your greatest ally may be the public. That has yet to be mobilized. Sure, City of Vancouver, Richmond, and others may give you support, but when it comes down to it, you need to mobilize the public. And I think perhaps one of the best ways to do that is to show or give greater credibility to public amenities. I would like to see some movement in this regard, perhaps in this first year of your plan. Thank you.
Well, that's two great points. So just to tell you where we are in the master plan, which is a legal document, we're just pulling it all together and then we send it to the Minister of Transport who then approves it. We expect that to happen by the end of the year. I agree with you. We have a capital plan that goes out 20 years and we say, well, we think we'll build this taxiway then, but it might move ahead or it might move behind a little bit, but we put it out there. There'll be nothing wrong with us doing the same thing for the public amenities and saying this is when we expect to do things. And people expect us to move that around a little bit, but absolutely we are fully committed to constructing those amenities. Thank you. I completely agree with you. We successfully, I think, raised the consternation that the business community and governments had with privatizing or share capitalizing the airport. I think you're right. I think we need to mobilize the public. That's why we have that No Airport Sell-Off website. If you feel strongly about it, please, it's easy to go there and send a letter to your MP. I do think, yes, we'd love to build our credibility. And, I just as an aside, really enjoyed the master planning sessions. And we learned a lot about what the public wants at the airport. So we're incorporating that in our plans. Thank you. David, I was worried about you, that you'd lost your voice or something.
Never.
Great to see you, David.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is David Varnes. I'm a member of the Machinists Union here locally. By way of introduction, and I don't think this was said this afternoon by any of the speakers, this is the 25th meeting of the Vancouver Airport Operating Authority and its annual general session. Now, the Vancouver Airport came into being as an authority in 1992. And I was going to pat myself on the back for having been to all 25 meetings, including today, but I happen to have done a little homework and found out that I have to share that particular accolade with a few other members who sit on the executive board. Glenn McCoy's been around that long. Michelle McWhinney has been that long.
Wow.
Anne Murray has been that long. And even Jerry Bruno, although he had a 5-year sabbatical, has been around since 1992. So I don't want to take too much time, but of course I've done my homework and I do have a fair number of questions. And I wanted to start off this afternoon with a couple of remarks, one which has already been addressed by the previous speaker. The first one I want to address is the effort by Mr. David Emerson, who, believe it or not, was the first CEO of the Vancouver Airport Authority. He began with the founders of the authority in 1992 and served for 5 years before he went back into private industry and then ultimately started a political career in Vancouver Kingsway, which started off okay for David as a Paul Martin Liberal, but then he decided to cross the floor in the next election and become a Stephen Harper Conservative, and it made an awful lot of people in Vancouver Kingsway really angry. What you should know is the discussion that we're having this afternoon about the privatization of airports is a report that was authored by David Emerson. It's called Pathways. The fortunate thing is that Pathways was commissioned by the Stephen Harper Conservatives, and they're now in opposition. The second point that was not mentioned was that there has been considerable opposition to the idea of privatization, and in fact, and I'm pulling this off your website, Craig, the Prime Minister of Canada stated in April in Calgary, when confronted about this fact, that, quote, it was not on his agenda. So the previous speaker mentioned about getting the general public involved in this particular issue. I'm pleased to report that members of the Machinists Union have been on this topic for more than 2 months and have been using the tool that you presented on that screen, Craig, which is an email address direct to the federal government, direct to the Prime Minister, telling him that privatization is a bad idea.
Right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
David, would it be okay to have 5 questions and then I'll flip to some of the online questions? Is that okay?
Why don't I just take a little breather right now
Okay.
and do some of the Twitter stuff?
Perfect. Let's try that. So there's we had a few questions and comments regarding the MacArthur Glen employee parking that we wanted to raise. And I've got 2 here. We did receive a few different comments, but here are 2 representative ones. Why do your minimum wage employees at MacArthur Glen have to pay for their parking? $70 a month is a lot of money for them. Secondly, why are MacArthur Glen designer outlet retail store employees not permitted to park in the MacArthur Glen parking lot, while the customers, admin, security, and maintenance employees park there for free? And that was a big issue, so if you want to address that.
You know, you got to try and get your opportunities where you can. This is a great opportunity for me to introduce the new VP of Commercial Business Development, Scott Norris. Scott joins us from Perth, Australia. Scott, please.
Thanks for the introduction. I met Sandra earlier today and we talked about parking for employees at the MacArthur Glen Outlet Centre. And I really appreciate the feedback, because understanding what your daily work routine is very helpful for us. The context for the rest of us is that there are around 23,000 employees working on Sea Island every day. It's a busy environment and space is at a premium. So in general, we control the parking and make sure that we've got parking for all. And we have paid parking for employees, which is consistent for whether you're working in the terminal or at the outlet centre. So we've got to find a balance. We invested heavily in the Canada line to make it easier for employees to take transit to work, and the parking prices at our employee lots haven't been changed in 10 years. So we're trying to keep that a viable option for all workers. However, let's take on board those comments and let's look at how we can make working at the airport a choice for people. We need everyone to be wanting to work at the airport. We've got so many great services, stores and facilities, and we need people to be able to come to the airport to work. It's a significant barrier, transit at the airport. So thank you very much for the question.
Now we've got a question here about our future air service, which I know you always love talking about. Specifically, are there any more A380s coming to Vancouver? My guess this is from our plane spotting community. And will we consider Austrian Airlines? Additionally, is there any plan for connection to Bangkok?
We'd love to have direct flights to Bangkok. I think I see, hi, Bill from Air Canada.
Hint, hint.
And yes, we'd love to have Austrian come in anytime. Sehr gut. And A380s, yes, I would expect a couple more. Don't know exactly when, but on very, very thick routes, especially in the summer, lots of passengers, especially if an airline is now flying 2 aircraft, as BA did, and they can bring it down to 1. I certainly expect to see a few more, and we have the gates to take them.
Okay, one more from Twitter sphere, and this would be from one of our more regular customers, I'm sure. Why is the Nexus line not always open, especially in the mornings? Do we know what the problem there is?
I'm assuming that they're talking about the Nexus line to go through pre-board screening. And unfortunately, we don't control that. It's CATSA, and it opens up only at a certain time in the morning, and it closes in the afternoon. We'd like to see it open more often. We'll actually post the opening hours when we answer this online.
Great. Okay, David, how are you feeling? Time? Thank you for the comments on the No Airport Sell-Off website. I'm glad you're using it. Invite everybody to use it.
Thank you. Craig, let's go to the annual report, page 35, Competition Bureau. There was a complaint to the Commissioner of Competition with respect to the provision of new in-flight catering service at Vancouver, and the Vancouver Authority has responded to that complaint. Can you tell me the status of that particular case at the present time?
I really can't. I don't like to ever say no comment, but we are entering into legal proceedings, and so just leave it at that.
Okay. Under governance, page 42, the board has a planning and development committee, and I may have missed it, but I don't see any listing of the board members for this committee. Who sits on the planning and development committee under the board of directors for the Airport Authority?
Well, that's one of our biggest committees. Ken Goosen, the nominee from the Association of Professional Engineers and Geoscientists, actually heads that committee. It might be quicker for me to tell you who's not on that committee, but I think it's about 9 of our directors, and they basically look at big contracts and the big capital projects.
Okay, thank you.
Want to go to Twitter?
I'll get one more in, and then we'll
Okay.
sit down and have some Twitter entries. Under new opportunities for revenue, recently you opened up a Sea to Sky meeting room in the domestic terminal building. What are the rental costs of that room?
Oh,
That's a good one.
you got me. Scott,
That's a really good one.
you know, cheap at twice the price is what I would say.
Can I hold you to that?
So I will definitely get you that.
Thank you.
That number.
Okay. Anybody else wanted to come to the microphone, certainly come to any of the areas, but let's take another one. So we had a number of email, social media questions related to traffic congestion, especially as it relates to taxis and trying to access both the ITB, the International Terminal Building, as well as the domestic terminal building. Specifically, this one is talking about how the taxis are congesting the area and it's hard to get into ITB arrivals. And then secondly, there was another one that also related to the same area, long taxi lineups all the way to Petrocan. They're holding up traffic. What are we doing in this area?
Well, I think now that he's warmed up, I should bring Scott back up again.
I'm actually going to keep him up here because I have a few more of those. No problem.
Traffic and curb congestion are a big item for us to manage. And with the numbers that Steve was talking about earlier, this summer's going to be even busier on our curb. It's a very complex space. It's a limited area for a lot of different traffic modes. So we recognise that there's some congestion that we can do something about. This summer, there's a range of initiatives being rolled out to ease the traffic through that area. For taxis in particular, we want to platoon the taxis to the curb so they're not waiting on the entrance roadways. So we can call them up in groups to hit the curb at the right time. There's a lot of initiatives in that space. I think we're going to have to bear with each other through the next few years as we do more construction activity around the terminals. But Craig showed a picture, an image of a new parkade. Part of that development is creating more curb space, and so we can start separating those modes of traffic. So keep the questions coming on that one, and we'll keep an eye on that and make sure we get everyone through the airport this summer.
Great. Scott just addressed the second questions about taxis and the congestion, so I think we're fine.
Okay.
Thanks. David, are you ready? Or Roy?
You know, I have to say thank you to the previous. Can you go back one? Do
Sure.
you have the ability to go back? I haven't heard the taxi holding area referred to as the weeds in like a decade. So
Was that a real name?
it was.
Holy cow.
It's airport jargon. If you work here, there's a whole separate language that describes places in the airport. The weeds is a place you used to put airplanes when you parked them.
Nice.
I know we saw a slide. I didn't see a specific mention of it or any detail in the report. Where are we actually putting the new parkade? How large is it, and when is it expected to be opened?
It is right behind the existing parkade in the lot there. It is going to be 6 levels. It is going to have be connected to the old parkade and have ramps inside. There will also be a special exit ramp off of the old parkade. It will also feature, I think this is going to be great, inside on the ceiling, a bunch of LEDs. So when you come into a level, you can spot the green LEDs where there are open spaces and red where they're full. So I think it's really going to speed parking. We'll put that into the old one as well. It is going to be open in 2020. So you're going to start seeing that construction. We still have to take that to the board and be, final approval, but I would expect to see construction start into this year.
Okay, I want to take you back to last year's meeting. And in last year's meeting, we talked about construction. And we were talking about the master plan, 2037, the kinds of things that were going to have to be built. And when you and I discussed this subject last year, we simply did not have any idea that we were going to get such a sizable jump in passengers as we did in this year. I was left with the impression last year that you still had about 5 years left before you reached capacity in the buildings, and now you have much less than that. The only project you talked about in the report was the parkade. What other projects are out there, and what is their present status?
Well, you're right. We are in that delightful position of our demand is higher than expected. So it's not without its issues, but I don't call them problems because it's a lovely place to be in this industry. We actually have a team, a special team that is already working on 2018, soon a 2019 plan. We have our master capital plan, which we are revising right now to speed up development. I did talk about D Pier. That's an additional 4 gates right away. I think Steve talked about the fact that we will be busing aircraft because, frankly, there is not a spot for you on the terminal at noon during the summer. Again, a little faster than we thought, but we've got a whole pile of plans. The parkade is just one of them. And I should point out that last Easter, it's only a month ago, we ran out of parking spaces on the island. So we need to get going with that. We need to add more capacity for gates. And then when you do the gates, of course, you have to keep up in every other regard, check-in, security, and baggage. So a lot of projects coming together. And in fact, we're building sort of a revised plan to keep up with the growth. We did not expect 2 million passengers last year. And over 1 million this year, and we expect over 1 million in 2018.
Go to another couple of Twitter questions, and I'll
Thank you,
do
sir.
that.
I would also invite anybody else who wants to ask any questions. I can certainly slot you in now. Roy, do you want to? Sure. Roy, everybody.
Hi, so I'd like to begin by thanking you for this opportunity which you provide us every year. I want to thank you for an incredible passenger experience as I travel around the world. It's rare for me to find something as good as this one back home, which is terrific.
Thank you.
One other thing I wanted to just comment on is, as a participant in the 2037 planning process, it was not only enjoyable for me as a user of the airport and an airline geek, but all the other people, the caliber of people who participated in that was just phenomenal. The vigor, the creativity, it was an amazing experience. And if you haven't done it, I don't know when the next one will be, but it seems like we're growing quickly, so it's not impossible to predict another one soon. It was quite fantastic and oversubscribed. So kudos to you. The fact that there's this much interest, I think you should bask in the afterglow of that.
Thank you.
So I'm not bothering you up for difficult questions, I don't think. Certainly not complaints, but I do have a couple of questions. I wanted to ask you, a couple of years back, I was here also following David in my questioning to Larry Berg, and I was talking about the pricing at concessions, and he had said that we were committed at YVR to high street pricing. I wanted to know if that commitment is still formally in place right now.
Yes, it is, but I would, just a couple of caveats. We strive, if something is directly comparable to downtown, say a burger or a coffee, and there's an actual outlet downtown, we strive to have that, with the one caveat that if you're post-security, because it costs a lot more to get all the stuff logistically through security, people can add a few cents, and they generally do. Also, I had a complaint once. Somebody said, look, I paid $16 for a glass of wine at the Fairmont. Well, if you go to the Fairmont downtown, it's going to be that. It's not going to be the same at Vino Volo or another outlet. But we try to stay to it, and we actually have secret shoppers that go around to check on the prices of things. And if we feel a retailer is starting to gouge, we will go after them.
Okay, thank you. Just curious in terms of the background of the secret shopper, is that an annual thing that you do?
No, it's on a regular basis.
Okay, thanks. Wanted to get some information about the revenue share that comes out of the outlet malls. In terms of a percentage, can you give us a feel for what percentage? I assume that just comes from rents, is that correct?
Well, actually, we're 50% owner.
Okay.
But as with any of these big projects, the revenue has not started to flow yet because, of course, it costs a lot to build it. But I expect in the next few years that it will.
Okay. The other question I had was revenue opportunities out of the kiosk development that you were doing in all EIT. Can you speak to what percentage of revenues come out of that?
Well, I don't want to get into the details. I'll tell you why. And we've talked about this in our sustainability report, because we compete with some really big manufacturers out there, and if they know how much we're making, they can figure out what we're charging. So I would say that we have 65% of the market inside North America. We're starting to push into Europe, but honestly, it's worth millions, and it just sort of came out of the fact that we did a good job here, and other airports said, look, I want that product. So we've actually got 2 other products right now in the mill that we think are going to be great for YVR, and we've already had other airports say, hey, when you roll that out, I want to buy it.
So this for me is another port of pride for YVR, just like YVR AAS, but you spun that off. How long before, is that part of the strategic thinking here? Is that over time, more products, it's not going to be core to your business, and that's a potential spin-off as well?
No, the reason we're successful is we're not just building products for the sake of building. We see a problem here, and we solve it. And when we solve it here, it then sells itself. So we have great innovation teams. We're working on self-bag, tag, and drop, which we brought a prototype over to Amsterdam in March. It was a big hit. But the main thing is we want it to work here because we need it to work here. We need to double our processing speed at check-in. And if we do that, we'll need a viewing area for other airports to come, because they'll come and they'll watch it and they'll say, give me 20 of those.
Okay. 2 more questions. I wanted to second the feeling of the first speaker in terms of more public outreach, and the comment there was around public amenities. The other thing that I would like to do is reiterate our invitation to you as somebody who's leading a group that's very interested in public policy, this being one of the topical issues right now. We'd love you to come speak for us, and I think that you should find other speaking opportunities. You clearly have one at the Board of Trade and other marquee events. Those aren't always accessible to the general public because of price and timing during the middle of the business day. Maybe it's you, maybe it's other people on the board, but I think we need to do a lot more of that, and I invite you to join us for that opportunity.
I'd like to. We actually have a program where we send out directors and VPs all over the province. For example, from Nanaimo to up the island to 100 Mile. And why? It's fun for us. We go to tell our story. It's fun for them because a new face at the lunch. And you know, we don't view ourselves as a Lower Mainland-centric airport. We're BC's airport.
Great. Well, this is a formal request to be slotted in. And the last question I have is just a general question, not so much about YVR, though it has an element there. I overheard a conversation last week, and I'm wondering if you or somebody on the team can confirm that NavCan Canada fees that I pay and that the cargo industry is paying goes to subsidize some of the recreational aircraft at, say, Boundary Day and such. And is that true? Does anybody know that?
You know, I really am not privy to Nav Canada's pricing. A long time ago, I was on the advisory committee. I don't think so, but I think you should direct that to Nav Canada.
Okay, thanks.
Great, thank you. And before we move on and go back to Mr. Varnes, I just want to ask a couple questions. So, baggage. Why does it take so long for luggage to get to the carousel? Sometimes it's even an hour. This is mostly in the international area. When I go to the Philippines, there's no waiting.
Well, we're frustrated by that as well. We want that to be minimum time because, quite honestly, the carousels are not storage mechanisms, they're delivery mechanisms. You know, we want the bags to come and people to grab them and go. So we're working with the airlines to ensure that they entice their ground handlers to meet a much more expeditious time to get luggage to the carousel. We're keen on that as well.
And one more. So the biggest story we had last year was the opening of our doggy relief area. And we have one of our great customers here who's wondering if in the international departures we have an important doggy bathroom. Why do we not have the same for domestic departures? It would be appreciated for frequent flyers with four-legged friends.
You know, I got to say, it's a great thing to do, and we're going to put them in every sector of the terminal. And if another airport is watching this, you will get 1 million hits when you do it, along with yoga.
There you go. Okay, David.
I'm going to pick up on the theme from my colleague who just asked the question, and I'm coming back to it. Innovative travel solutions. When I went through the unconsolidated financial reports, and I like those, the unconsolidated report, because that's what you read, Craig, and that's what I want to read too. It doesn't list innovative travel solutions as part of the subsidiaries of YVR-AA. Is there a reason for that?
And that's because it is not a subsidiary. It is just a regular department.
Like a business unit?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And yet, as a business unit, it is out there marketing the technology for the airport authority to other airports in North America and Europe.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now we get to my favorite part.
Mine too, I guess.
Yes? Yep.
Glenn.
These are, on page 73, the awards that were given for contracts by the airport authority with no bid.
Sole source contracts.
Sole source contracts.
Well, I got a whole bunch of VPs here open up.
Oh, boy. I'm just going to hit a couple of them here that really stand out. $612,120 for trailers to Britco. What was that for?
Well, let me just preface that by saying that what we normally want to do is go out to the market. You know, that's how we get the best price. That's how we keep competition alive and give everybody a shot. There are some criteria where we'll go out and sole source. For example, if we're continuing a multi-year program, if there's an emergency, or if we're just trying to keep something the same, for example, the same kind of baggage system, then we will sole source. In this exact case, because it's trailers, I think you want to talk to Don.
Yeah, I miss him. This is his first shot.
Hi, David. Thank you.
Hi, Don.
Thank you for the question. Last January 2016, we got a requirement from CATSA to put in non-passenger vehicle screening at a number of locations on the airport, and we had to have it in place by April 1st, which was a very short timeline. So we canvassed the local suppliers, and Britco was the only one that could build us the units in time for that service to be activated. So that's why they got the contract.
Okay, I actually remember that provision and saw that notice, so thank you very much for that. $365,000 for Inta Vistas Consulting. What were they telling you for $365,000?
Well, we do a lot of work in trying to influence government policy. And we've been quite successful in that regard. But oftentimes when you go to the government, you say, I would like you to make this change in visa policy or in bilateral policy. They want to see research, and we frankly don't have the time or the talent to do that. So that's what we do, is we get them to do the research so we can put it in front of the government.
Is this Dr. Michael Trethewey we're talking about?
It's that team. Dr. Trethewey, I don't think did much of it. He came and talked to us a couple of times. It's other people on that team.
Okay, thank you. $317,367 to Casian Architectural Interior Design and Planning for consulting services. What were they fixing?
That'll be Don.
Cajun Kennedy is one of quite a number of architects that have done the design of the terminal, and Air Canada required or requested an expansion of their international lounge. It happened that Cajun Kennedy's team had done the design of the building in that neighborhood, and so they were familiar with the structure and the systems, and so they were the most knowledgeable and able to actually do that design. And Air Canada wanted the project developed quickly, so we sole sourced it and extended their contract for that bit of work.
Thank you. More Twitter questions?
Sure, thank you. Okay, cell phone paving lot. We introduced one, I think, last year. One of our customers is wondering if we're going to pave the cell phone lot, as they almost lost their car in a pothole. That's not good.
Well, actually, what we're going to do is we're going to grade it, and we're going to gravel it, and we'll see how that does. We don't make any money from the cell phone lot. We appreciate people use it and don't park along the main road. But right now, no plans.
Okay. And moving on to drones. Drones are certainly a hot topic around the airports. With the increasing popularity of drones, are the current measures able to manage future hazards in order to ensure safe operations at YVR?
Well, it's a good question. You may notice when you come over the Arthur Lang or driving around the airport, you'll see the no drone zone signs that Steve and his team put up. Steve, I know you've been deeply involved with this with the ministry. You want to talk a little bit about it?
YVR actually, working with Transport Canada, initiated a national program to draw awareness to the safe operation of drones. Drones are an awful lot of fun. But they're only fun if they're operated safely. So Transport Canada has a guideline. You're not to use a drone within 9 kilometers of an airport, any airport. And so we encourage the safe, fun operation of a drone far away from an airport, far away from an aircraft, to ensure the safety of crew, passengers, and of course, the integrity of flight. So it continues to be a key safety concern for us. That's a priority. I will toss in comments on the use of lasers. And here's what I would say. If you're seeing the use of a drone, or in fact the use of a laser, anywhere near an airport or an aircraft, do us a favor, phone 911. It's a safety concern, so we want to make sure that everyone is safe, and we continue to work with Transport Canada and the community to educate on the safe and fun use of drones.
Great. Hi, sir. Did you have a question?
My annual question is, what progress has been made on South American nonstop flights?
Great
Hi, Richard.
question.
How are you? Good to see you. We are making good progress. It's not an easy an easy one, but we actually have had a request from a carrier out of China to do a flight through here and then on into Latin America, and we're using that as pressure to move the government along. It's just a little more different down there compared to the United States. You know, the United States and Canada have very similar customs and immigration and are very interlinked. It's a little more different in South America. It will come, just not this year.
Okay. The second question is, our Prime Minister said, at this time, I'm not interested in selling off airports. So what's brought it back up again? And who's behind it?
Well, he said that, and we immediately said that he was very smart and thanked him. But in the background, there are still, the work continues. So we just want to make sure that we're very clear that we're not in favor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. I have a question here about our restaurants and commercial offer. We received a couple of them. Here are two highlight ones. How about more restaurants on the departure side of the airport, or security gates that stay open longer and lookout points to all aspects of the airport? And then another question about more Tim Hortons in the airport.
We're always looking at our offer. I can tell you there are some new restaurants opening up. There will be new ones in the D Pier expansion. There's really good opportunity for some spectacular views out to the north there. So we're really going to look for a signature restaurant there. And yes, two things. So I don't have to bring Scott up again. We have to think about the peaks, and as the peaks get bigger, the lineups can be longer, so we have to add either faster processing at places like Tim Hortons or Starbucks, or we have to add more locations. And also, we're deeply thinking about how to make sure there are good amenities in the terminal right up to midnight, because we now have an Air Canada bank heading to Australia with Melbourne, Brisbane, and Sydney at about 11:30 at night. And people, you know, restaurants generally did not have enough people to stay open. Well, we've got to make sure that people have the amenities at night to enable the hub. So those are two things we're looking at very, very carefully, and you'll see some new restaurants opening up in here very shortly.
Even today, I am totally going to throw in a shout out to Freshie, who opened up an International Terminal building. I had lunch today. It was excellent. David.
Let's turn to the non-consolidated financial statements on page 7. And the comment that I find under Part 6, Investments in Subsidiaries. On April 22, 2016, the Airport Authority, through VAL Templeton, contributed $1,100,000 in equity to the DOC partnership to fund ground improvements prior to the construction of Phase 2 of the DOC. That's our duty-free center down the road. Two-part question. When is it expected that there will be additional building onto the DOC? And secondly, and I guess this goes back to Glenn McCoy, there's about $22 million plus in equity already contributed by the Airport Authority to the DOC. What is a reasonable expectation on seeing some return on that investment? Consider you're into this for 50%.
It's an excellent question, and since Glenn has not been up yet, Glenn?
Thanks, Dave. Good to see you.
Nice to be here.
Yeah, so what's happening right now is, in terms of future returns, as Craig mentioned earlier, that mall is really getting up and running, and we're close to filling up Phase 1. We're looking at Phase 2. We would expect that once that normalizes in the next couple of years, we'll start to see dividends coming back from it, increasing our non-aeronautical revenue. We also think that the costs of Phase 2 are smaller than Phase 1, and the equity requirement around that will be reduced. At the same time, we also have a loan guarantee out there, and once we complete Phase 2, that loan guarantee will also fall away.
Okay. What is the expected date for the commencement of Phase 2?
We're still looking at that, working with our partners, MacArthur Glen, and figuring out what the right time for that is.
Thank you.
I would add one point of clarification, though. The Designer Outlet Center is not duty-free. Duty-free is here inside the terminal.
I understand it, but I was interested in following the development of that particular facility in as much as the Tawasin Indian Band decided to open up a facility with a similar offering, and whether there had been an impact on the airport's investment for the same type of facility.
Well, we don't think it's a similar offering. We're a designer outlet center that's more a little bit bigger, big box type outlet center. We haven't seen much of a difference, honestly, and I can tell you that we expect really good returns out of that investment.
Okay, I'd like to finish my remarks this afternoon, and bearing in mind that this is the 25th annual general meeting, so we've been doing this now for a quarter century.
Just seems like longer.
Oh, so much fun. I wanted to pay or give a salute to two pioneers of the Airport Authority, two gentlemen who are quite unsung, but to whom I have some idea of what they've contributed to this authority, its history, and the fact that Craig Richmond can stand and receive all the accolades that he has today. One is a gentleman named Frank O'Neill. Frank O'Neill, for those of you who do not know, was the former airport manager when the Vancouver airport belonged to the Federal Minister of Transport. Now, Frank's contribution to the Airport Authority is he was able to persuade Grace McCarthy, Chester Johnson, and David Emerson that airport expertise is a saleable commodity. And in fact, the airport made a considerable amount of money selling its good management practices to other airports in North America and throughout the world. The other individual that I'd like to salute is Professor Michael Trethewey. And for those of you who don't know about Michael, he promulgated a theory called the North Star Strategy. The North Star Strategy is the original economic concept upon which this airport is now currently built. He provided facts and figures, once again, to Grace McCarthy, Chester Johnson, and David Emerson, that this airport was a huge economic generator for the province of British Columbia, and that it could use its proximity to Southeast Asia and its ability to generate revenue from air traffic to enlarge and produce a huge industry. And correct me where we're at, Craig, this used to be the third largest economic generator behind things like fisheries and forestry, and I believe we're now number one. Is that not correct?
I don't think number one, but I'll get that figure to you.
Okay.
But we're important.
Well, we know that. Thank you very, very much. It's been a good meeting. You certainly earned all your awards and accolades that I've seen this year. The annual report was just full of accomplishments, and I look forward to seeing more in 2017. Thank you again.
Thank you, David. Let me just clarify a couple things. I completely agree about Frank O'Neill, and I think Frank was instrumental in convincing the original board and management that a First Nations theme would be unique in the world, and I think we have a lot to thank him for. And by the way, I worked, as you know, for Vantage, which used to be Vancouver Airport Services, for 7 years. I have to correct you on a little thing because he's sitting here. The North Star Strategy, Mike Trethewey certainly was part of that, but Jerry Bruno, VP of Government Affairs, who's been doing this since the earth cooled, was instrumental. And you know a strategy is a good one when you go back 25 years and say, you know what, it's paying off. So thanks, Jerry. Thanks, Dr. Trethewey, and thank you, David.
Yeah. Thank you, David. We have a couple more questions from Twitter, and then I would invite anybody else from the audience to come and ask us questions. Moving to climate change, Craig, with rising sea levels expected, how is YVR preparing?
Well, in general, we're trying to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, but belt and suspenders, we're actually increasing the height of the dikes to 4.7 geodetic. That is a long-term plan to be done in the next 5 or 6 years. We're already into the 4th year of it. and that will be higher than most dikes in the Lower Mainland.
Great. Now, important to our community is the use of the north runway. We had a couple different questions about that, specifically on using it more if we open it up for arrivals a half hour earlier, and if we could use it more for departures if it met certain sound ratings. What is your thought on use of the north runway?
Well, you know, I have a very deep and at times painful relationship with the north runway, but I can say this. When the north runway, which by the way, was brilliantly conceived and executed, and the only reason why we're able to get to the number of passengers we have today. But when it went in, part of the deal with the public was, here are the opening hours, 7 till 10, only for arrivals, except during emergencies like snow or maintenance, or when demand exceeds capacity, such as during peak periods. I remember that from 20 years ago. So we're not going to, our plan does not say we're going to open up earlier than 7, because that was not the deal with the public. We will definitely be using the airport or the runway more for takeoffs in the future, but I think there's other things we can do airspace-wise and in terms of technology. That's not one I want to go at.
Okay, great. And I have one more question here from the local community that works on Sea Island. Are we going to get a fitness center here at YVR?
Well, there is one, and I make a pitch for the Fairmont. If you want to use the fitness facility, they definitely will allow you to do it. We'll look at it because honestly, we tried a yoga room last summer just to see what happened, and the response was overwhelming. So we'll look at something like that, especially as a hub airport where people will come in and they might be 4 hours between their next flight. What can you do? We'd certainly want to look at that as an amenity going forward.
Great. Any other questions from the audience here today?
Sorry, just one more that you touched on, the international terminal going dark at night with more flights to Australia. So I happen to love the night flights out east domestically to Toronto, of which there's now a few more of them. And I find the amenities are quite brutal at that hour in terms of both the restaurants and even the paid-for lounge that I'm paying for is just not available. My feeling is that while we need to make sure that economics work for all the retailers there, there's a certain responsibility when you're granted the access there and the exclusivity. Can you speak maybe to enticing longer hours there, or maybe you have plans for additional flights like night flights to New York and stuff like that? Mind you, that'd be out of the U.S., so it wouldn't help me. But
U.S. is tough because of staffing, you know, with Customs and Border Protection. But you're right. We're thinking about ways to make sure that the people that fly late at night are not left in the lurch without any place to eat or, you know, anything to buy. So definitely working on that. Ask me that question next year.
Great. Thank you, everybody. From a Q&A perspective, a reminder that all of the questions, both those submitted written and those that happened here today, will be posted online with the answers by May 20th. I will hand this back over to you. To Mary.
I think it's Mary.
Well, thank you, and thank you for all your great questions. I think that all remains for me to do is to thank you all for coming. I'll just remind you that we have copies of the 2016 Annual and Sustainability Report here, and it's also available at yvr.ca. We really appreciate you coming to the meeting, and I will now declare the meeting formally adjourned. Thank you all.